Hi, I'm Iona here. How are you? I hope you're well. I wanted to pop on today to do a video looking at PEMF and exploring how that has really impacted on a kinesiology session that I've done. So if you follow me on Facebook or on Instagram, and you'll know that I also run a hub in Teleki Living at Winona. And as part of that hub, we run care cafes, which are an opportunity for people to access holistic health at a much reduced price. And we've had for the last couple of weeks we've had a P90, which is a PEMF machine and a terahertz. So it's a foot plate basically that has PEMF energy flowing through it as well as terahertz. And it's an amazing machine that has only recently been introduced into Australia. It's very big in Asia already, but it's only recently been introduced, and it's one of the first machines where you can actually have PEMF and terahertz in a portable machine, because most of the time they're big clinical machines that cost thousands of dollars. So it's really exciting to have this technology here, and we had an opportunity to have it at the Care Cafe, and obviously I was really intrigued to use it. Um, and so I had a session with it, and you sit with your feet on the plate for about 30 minutes, and I just had it on a really low setting because obviously it's the first time that I had used it, and also I'm very sensitive to energy, and so I'd always take it very carefully initially until I get a sense of how it's going to impact me, and yeah, so you just have to make sure that you're drinking lots of water and you're keeping yourself hydrated. And so I had my session. It was just I felt just like tingling. It was a kind of a gentle tingling on my feet. That was really about all I sensed when I was actually sitting on the machine. But as I was driving home, I had this sense of like my cells unlocking, which was really interesting. It was just like I could literally feel my cells unlocking. And it was a sense of obviously increased kind of energy production or accessibility, but also a sense of being able to access nutrients and all of those things a lot more easily. And there's a sense of movement and spaciousness. So I could feel that through my body. Things were moving, and obviously because it reoxygenates the blood, you're with the PMF, you're reconnecting to the earth's energy. It helps with pain, it helps with inflammation, it helps with lowering blood pressure. I mean, there's hundreds of different benefits for PMF and terahertz. So, but it is all about getting things flowing and providing that environment for the body's healing, a much more conducive environment for body's healing, because obviously we're being bombarded so much with Wi-Fi and all of the other kind of higher level EMFs, and so I was really interested. Well, what happens when we reconnect with the earth energies? Because we are so disconnected at the moment, and if we're not walking barefoot and really spending conscious time connecting with it, we can be spend the majority of our time disconnected from it. So there's definitely this sense of movement, of spaciousness, of the cells unlocking, releasing things that hadn't been able to be accessed previously. But what also happened on my drive home was that I started to get tension build up in my neck. Now that's a normal thing for me when something energetic, when I need to do a kinesiology session for myself, when a pattern is being is kind of rising to the surface. And it didn't surprise me that this would happen because it was the first time that I was using a machine. It's going to bring things up to the surface. When we're using new things like PMF, then we will be going through a detox process. And there's a physical detox, there's an emotional detox, there's an energetic detox. And so this was the energetic detox coming to the surface. So I came home and I thought, right, I'll do a kinesiology session for myself to see what had arisen. And it was fascinating because the first thing that I noticed when I tuned in and going, okay, right, what wants to show itself was this sense again of openness, It's like all, not all, but a lot of my defense patterns felt very open. It felt like the information was flowing a lot quicker, a lot easier. I could get into these really deep patterns and limitations that were showing up. And it was all about, how I've kept things tight, how I've kept control, how I've kind of kept myself separate. And these were patterns that were going way, way back. Sorry, I just put my earphone out. Way, way back to Lemurian times, and which is something that when we're working, I'm a quantum kinesiologist, and so, we are in the time that we are in at the moment, we're crossing so many timelines and crossing so many frequency bands, and I'll do another video on that shortly. That these patterns that have originated, because that's what we always want to work with, is what's showing up now. But where did that pattern originate from? And because I work in the quantum field, I will often go back into your past lives and going back into, at the moment, I'm certainly finding a lot of it's going back into Lemurian times, and even further into kind of founding race times, because that's the frequency that we are really starting to be able to access, which is incredibly exciting. So when I'd use the P90 and that, this sense of openness and this spaciousness and just being able to access stuff that I hadn't been able to access before, these were the patterns that were coming up, and the energy and the information just flowed so quickly. I did the session very, very fast because sometimes when we're going into really deep work, it can feel a bit drudgy, like when I'm tuning in as a clinician. The nerve, the subconscious go, yeah, I need to get rid of his nervous system. Go, I'm not quite sure. It's kind of how it feels to me. So it can feel quite drudgy, like going through mud. But this was very clean, very clear, very open, flowing very fast. And really this sense of just, yeah, let's get things moving, let's get things opening. So it really felt like I'd kind of supercharged the kinesiology session and so I'm really interested. I'm obviously going to keep exploring this. I'm waiting for delivery for my own machine. And once I get that, I'll be exploring it a lot more with myself, obviously, but then with clients. And I'm going to be offering this as part of my client sessions that if you want to, that you can sit on the PEMF machine, the P90, first before a session, so that you're in that receptive state, that you're in a state of your nervous system deactivation, of relaxation, of movement, of fluidity. And then we do the kinesiology because I think, I do think it's really going to supercharge it because the body is in such a place of, yep, let's do this. And so, yeah, I'm going to be offering that as part of my services. It's obviously completely optional. Some people won't want to do that, and that's absolutely fine. And it will obviously to sit on it will only be available for those people who are in person. But for those people who are online and overseas, I'll just be obviously offering my normal services as a quantum kinesiologist. And if you have a P90 yourself, you can sit on it first before coming and have a session, which would be amazing. But yeah, I'm really fascinated to see how this, and especially because I'm studying the functional neurology side of it, so really working with the nervous system, and especially those primitive reflexes, the cranial nerves, and I think that those combinations, that as we work, we get the body into that receptive state. We then looking at, okay, well, what are the primitive reflexes that are still retained and are ready to be integrated again? Then we've got the building blocks. The nervous system is ready. We're letting go of those reflex reactions, which keep us really frozen, especially, obviously the fear paralysis, the Moro, and even things like the Babinski reflex, which is really about bracing. if we can release those, then we've got that potential to really build on those and develop that nervous system capacity, as well as that emotional, energetic, your capacity to really hold so much more, and which, at this time is exactly what we're needing, because, the frequencies that are coming in on the planet, what's changing, we're really being called into our potential. So the more that we can work with that nervous system to hold all of this light, to hold all this energy, to hold that potential, then, the quicker we can move forward with all of this, which is really exciting. So yeah, I'm really fascinated. I will do another video once I've received my machine and played around with it a little bit more, and how I'm going to work with it, and release your information on the sessions that I'll be offering. But yeah. Yeah, just thought it would be interesting to share this, because I think, we know that frequency um, healing is really hitting the planet, in a technology way, in many ways. And this is one that we can all have in our homes, which is really exciting. And yeah, it's, how it then supercharges others. And I think, like say, I'm a kinesiologist, but I know with other people, who are body workers, whether it's chiropractors, whether it's, craniosacral, all of that, they're finding very, very similar to results to what I've found, that it's just supercharging that, especially when we're working with the nervous system. So wonderful stuff.